The desert wind carried dust and desperation through the half-burned trading post. Sarah Whitmore pressed her back against the splintered wood, clutching the silver locket, her mother's last gift, in trembling fingers. 3 days without food. 2 nights hiding from the men who'd killed her husband and burned their wagon. The locket was all she had left, and even that would barely buy a crust of bread. "Please," she whispered to the grizzled trader behind the counter. "Just some water and hardtack. This silver ain't worth nothing to a dead woman," the trader interrupted. "Those Comancheros are still hunting. You need to get gone, not fed." Before I continue, I'd love to ask a favor. If you're enjoying this story, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. It truly means the world to us and motivates us to bring you more quality content like this. Also, I'm curious, where are you listening from today? The doorway darkened. Sarah's heart seized as a figure stepped through, backlit by the harsh afternoon sun. But it wasn't the Comancheros. The man was Apache. That much was clear from the intricate beadwork on his buckskin shirt and the red cloth wrapped around his forehead. He moved with a warrior's grace, every step deliberate, powerful. He couldn't have been more than 30, with copper skin stretched over defined muscle, black hair falling past his shoulders, and eyes like obsidian chips that seemed to see straight through her fear. "Nakai," the trader breathed, "didn't expect you for another week." The Apache, Nakai, ignored him entirely, his gaze fixed on Sarah, on the locket dangling from her white-knuckled grip, on the bruise purpling her cheekbone, on the tears she was too exhausted to hide. "How much?" he asked, his English perfect but accented with something melodic. He gestured to the locket. It's all I have," Sarah stammered. "I was just trying to buy food." "I know what you were trying to do." He stepped closer, and she noticed the knife at his belt, the bow slung across his broad back. The barely contained strength in his frame, but his voice remained gentle. "How much for the woman, not the silver?" The trader's eyes widened. "She ain't for sale, Nakai." "Everything's for sale here. You taught me that." Nakai's jaw tightened. "Those Comancheros are half a day behind her trail. She needs sanctuary. I'm offering it." Sarah's breath caught. "I don't understand." "You don't have to." He pulled a leather pouch from his belt and tossed it onto the counter. It landed with the heavy clink of gold. "That's for supplies, a month's worth. And information. Where are the Comancheros camped?" The trader's greedy fingers closed around the pouch. "Canyon 12 miles south." "But why do you want—" "The woman comes with me now." It wasn't a question. Nakai turned those devastating dark eyes back to Sarah. "You can trust me or you can die here. Choose quickly." She should have been terrified. This was an Apache warrior, and she'd heard the stories, blood and arrows and scalps. But something in his face, in the carefully controlled way he kept his distance, in the fact that he'd called her the woman and not a woman, something made her believe him. "I'll come," she whispered. He nodded once, then walked outside. A magnificent paint horse stood waiting, along with a smaller mare. He checked both saddles with efficient movements, then gestured to the mare. "Can you ride?" "Not well. You'll learn." He mounted his horse in one fluid motion, then looked down at her expectantly. "We have maybe 3 hours before those men come searching. We need to be gone." Sarah approached the mare on shaking legs. She'd ridden side saddle a few times in Boston, but this Western saddle looked completely foreign. When she tried to mount, her exhausted muscles betrayed her. She stumbled. Strong hands caught her waist. Nakai had dismounted without a sound. He lifted her effortlessly onto the mare, his touch firm but brief, careful not to linger. This close, she could smell sage and smoke on his skin, could see the thin scar cutting through his left eyebrow, could feel the heat radiating from his body. "Hold the reins like this," he said, positioning her hands. "Press with your knees to go. Pull back to stop. Stay close to me." Then he was back on his paint, urging it forward. Sarah's mare followed automatically, and they rode out into the vast emptiness of the New Mexico territory. The land here was brutal, all red rock and scrub brush, with the sun beating down like a blacksmith's hammer. Sarah's head swam with heat and hunger, but Nakai set a steady pace that somehow didn't jar her bones too badly. He didn't speak, just occasionally glanced back to ensure she was still in the saddle. After an hour, they reached a narrow canyon where a trickle of water ran between rust-colored stones. Nakai dismounted and helped her down, his hands once again respectful, once again brief. "Drink slowly," he instructed, crouching by the stream. "Your body isn't ready for much." Sarah knelt beside him, cupping water to her cracked lips. It tasted like heaven. "Thank you," she managed. "I don't know why you're helping me, but you needed help." He pulled dried meat from his saddlebag and handed her a small piece. "Eat this over the next hour, little bites." "Where are we going?" "My mother's people have a settlement 3 days north. You'll be safe there until the Comancheros move on." He stood, scanning the canyon walls with a warrior's vigilance. "They won't follow where we're going." "Because it's Apache territory?" "Because I'll kill them if they try." He said it simply, as if commenting on the weather. Then he looked at her, really looked at her, and something shifted in his expression. "What's your name?" "Sarah. Sarah Whitmore." Sarah. The way he said it sounded like a prayer. "I'm Nakai. It means Mexican in my language. My father was a vaquero who traded with my mother's band. He taught me Spanish and English before he died." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. He died well defending the settlement from slavers." Nakai's jaw tightened. "He taught me that some things are worth dying for. People, honor, truth." Sarah took a small bite of the jerky, the salt and smoke exploding across her tongue. "You didn't have to spend your gold on me." "Gold isn't what I need." He turned away, but not before she saw something flicker in those dark eyes. Loneliness, perhaps, or hunger of a different kind. "Rest for 10 minutes, then we ride until dark." That night, they made camp in a protected alcove where ancient peoples had once carved spirals into the rock face. Nakai built a small fire and cooked cornmeal cakes, while Sarah huddled in the blanket he'd provided, watching him move with unconscious grace. "Why did you really buy my freedom back there?" she asked quietly. "You could have let me make my own bargain." He didn't answer immediately. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough. 2 winters ago, I came back from a hunting trip and found soldiers had raided our settlement. They took 7 women. We tracked them for 5 days. His hands stilled. We were too late. They'd already sold 4 of them to a brothel in Santa Fe. The others, he swallowed hard. I swore then that I would never see another woman treated as property, never again. "I'm sorry," Sarah whispered. I can't imagine." "Don't imagine it." He handed her a cornmeal cake. "Just eat. Get strong. Tomorrow will be harder riding." She bit into the cake. The simple food, the best thing she'd tasted in days. "The trader called you by name. You do business with him?" "Sometimes. He's greedy, but honest in his way. He knows I pay fair prices for information and supplies. Nakai settled across the fire from her, close enough for conversation, but far enough to be proper. What were you doing out here alone? This isn't country for a woman from... He gestured vaguely at her torn but well-made dress. The East? Boston. Sarah pulled the blanket tighter. My husband convinced me that New Mexico held opportunities. We'd only been married 4 months when they... She couldn't finish. The Comancheros? She nodded, blinking back tears. They wanted our wagon, our supplies. Thomas tried to fight them. He wasn't a fighter. He was a clerk, a good man who thought the frontier would make him... She laughed bitterly. Make him something more, I suppose. And you? I just wanted a life that was mine. My father was controlling. Thomas seemed gentle, safe. She met Nakai's eyes across the fire. I've made terrible choices. You chose to survive today. That's not terrible. He fed another stick to the flames. Sleep now. I'll keep watch. You need rest too. I'm Apache. I learned to sleep like a rabbit, with one eye open. But there was warmth in his voice, the first hint of humor she'd heard. Sleep, Sarah. You're safe. And somehow, impossibly, she believed him. The next days blurred together in a rhythm of riding, resting, and rare conversations. Nakai taught her to sit the saddle properly, to read the desert's subtle signs, where water might be found, which plants were edible, how to tell if they were being followed. He was patient with her inexperience, never mocking, always encouraging. She learned that he'd spent winters with his Apache mother's band and summers with his father's Mexican family until both worlds had betrayed him. That he now lived between cultures, trusted fully by neither, relying only on himself. That he'd once loved a woman who'd chosen a full-blood Apache warrior over him, saying he was too contaminated by white ways. Do you believe that? Sarah asked on the third evening, as they sat overlooking a valley painted gold by sunset. That you're contaminated? Nakai's laugh was hollow. I believe I'm useful. I speak 3 languages. I can trade with whites, Mexicans, and several tribes. I know their customs, their tricks, their weapons. But trust me? Love me? He shook his head. I'm too Indian for the whites and too white for the Indians. That's not fair. Fairness is a luxury, Sarah. Survival is necessity. He stood abruptly. We'll reach the settlement tomorrow. My mother will help you find work, maybe traveling with traders heading east. You can go back to Boston, start over. The thought should have brought relief. Instead, Sarah felt something twist in her chest. What if I don't want to go back? He went very still. What are you saying? I'm saying that these 3 days, I felt more alive than I did in 23 years in Boston. She rose to face him, heart hammering. I've been terrified and exhausted and sunburned, but I've also felt free, useful. You've taught me things, trusted me to learn. You haven't treated me like fragile crystal that might shatter. Sarah, I know I'm not what you want, she said, the words tumbling out. I can't track or hunt or speak your language. I'm weak and ignorant about this land. I'm just a widow with nothing to offer. And the Apache growled, actually growled, and suddenly he was right there, barely a hand's breadth away, his eyes blazing. Then why can't I want anything else? The world stopped. Sarah's breath caught as Nakai's hands came up to frame her face, his touch achingly gentle despite the intensity in his expression. His thumbs brushed her cheekbones, and she felt the tremor in his fingers. This strong, controlled warrior was shaking. Every night I've watched you sleep, he confessed hoarsely. Every time you've smiled at something I've taught you, I've felt it here. He pressed one hand over his heart. I told myself you were my responsibility, nothing more. But God help me, Sarah. I think about your laugh. The way you don't give up, even when you're exhausted. How you asked about my father, like his life mattered, like I matter. You do matter, she whispered. You don't know what you're saying. I live between worlds. I have enemies. The settlement we're going to, my mother's people tolerate me, but they don't celebrate me. If you stayed, he closed his eyes. It would be hard, lonely sometimes, dangerous often. Sarah lifted her hands to cover his, where they still cupped her face. I've been lonely in ballrooms full of people. I've been in danger in my own father's house. Hard I can do, Nakai. What I can't do anymore is live half a life, pretending to be someone I'm not. His eyes opened, searching hers. What are you saying? I'm saying teach me everything. The language, the skills, the ways of surviving here. Let me choose this, choose you with my eyes open. Her voice strengthened. I'm saying I don't want to be rescued and sent away. I want to stay. Sarah, Sarah. Her name on his lips sounded like a benediction and a curse. You deserve someone whole, someone who belongs somewhere. Maybe I don't want to belong somewhere. Maybe I want to belong to someone. She stepped closer until their bodies nearly touched. Maybe I want to belong to you and have you belong to me. The growl came again, deeper this time, and then his mouth was on hers. The kiss was everything, desperate and tender, claiming and asking permission all at once. His hands slid into her hair, cradling her head as if she were precious, breakable. But when she pressed against him, feeling the steel of his body against her softness, he responded with barely leashed hunger. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Nakai rested his forehead against hers. I can't promise you easy. I don't want easy. I want real. I can't promise you safety. I feel safer with you than I ever did in my father's mansion. Sarah. He pulled back enough to meet her eyes, and she saw the vulnerability there, the fear of hoping. I can't promise I won't fail you. Won't be enough. She smiled, reaching up to trace the scar through his eyebrow. And we'll fail together. We'll be enough together. I'm not asking for perfection, Nakai. I'm just asking for a chance. A chance, he repeated slowly. Then something shifted in his expression. A wall crumbling, a decision made. Yes, together. This time when he kissed her, it was a promise. They didn't speak much more that night, just held each other under the vast, star-scattered sky. But Sarah felt something settle in her chest, a certainty that she'd found where she belonged. Not a place, a person. The settlement appeared the next afternoon, a cluster of wickiups and adobe structures nestled in a hidden valley where a clear stream ran. Women looked up from grinding corn. Children stopped their games. Warriors reached for weapons. The sight of Nakai brought recognition, but not quite welcome. The sight of Sarah brought suspicion. An older woman emerged from the largest wickiup, her face a feminine version of Nakai's, her eyes just as dark and sharp. She spoke rapid Apache, gesturing between her son and Sarah. Nakai responded in the same language, his tone respectful but firm. Finally, his mother switched to accented English. You bring white woman here? I bring Sarah here, mother. She's under my protection. Protection. The older woman's lips thinned. That is what you call it? That's what it is. Nakai's hand found Sarah's, lacing their fingers together. She needs sanctuary until the Comancheros move on. And then, he paused, and then she stays, if she chooses, with me. A ripple went through the gathered people. Nakai's mother studied Sarah with eyes that missed nothing. The worn dress, the healing bruises, the way Sarah stood straighter when Nakai's hand held hers. "You know our ways?" she asked Sarah. "No, ma'am, but I want to learn. You know his father was Mexican? That my son is both, and neither? I know he's a good man who saved my life when he didn't have to." Sarah squeezed Nakai's hand. "I know he's taught me more in 3 days than I learned in 23 years. And I know," she took a breath, "I know I love him." The words hung in the air. Nakai's hand tightened convulsively on hers. He hadn't expected that. Neither had she, really, until the words emerged. But they were true. Achingly, completely true. His mother's expression softened almost imperceptibly. She spoke to Nakai in Apache, and Sarah caught the word for crazy, repeated several times. Nakai responded, his voice low and intense, and Sarah heard her own name mixed with Apache words she couldn't understand. Finally, his mother nodded. "You may stay, but you work, you learn, no special treatment." "I wouldn't want any," Sarah said. "We will see." The older woman turned away, then paused. "My son's name Nakai. Do you know what it really means?" He said it means Mexican. "It means wanderer, someone who walks between worlds." She looked at her son with something that might have been sorrow or pride or both. Perhaps he has finally found someone willing to walk with him. The next weeks were brutal. Sarah learned to build fires without wasting kindling, to prepare corn in 6 different ways, to recognize edible plants and poisonous ones. Nakai's mother, who insisted Sarah call her by her name, Desba, was a harsh teacher, quick to correct but fair in her judgments. The other women of the settlement watched Sarah with varying degrees of suspicion, curiosity, and outright hostility. She bore their stares and whispered comments with as much grace as she could manage, focusing on learning rather than approval. Nakai was gone often, scouting for threats or hunting, but when he returned, he always found her, his eyes searching her face for signs of regret or resignation. He never found any. One evening, after a particularly difficult day where Sarah had ruined an entire batch of cornmeal and earned Desba's sharp tongue, she sat by the stream with her aching hands submerged in cool water. Nakai settled beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. "My mother is hard on you. She's teaching me. There's a difference." Sarah leaned into him. "I'm grateful." "Are you?" He sounded skeptical. "Kiana threw cornmeal at your feet today. She's testing me. They all are." Sarah pulled her hands from the water and studied the blisters forming. "They want to see if I'll break, if I'm just playing at being here." "And are you? Playing?" She turned to face him fully. "Does this feel like playing to you?" She held up her ruined hands. "I've never worked like this in my life. My father would have had servants arrested for less. But these hands?" She flexed her fingers despite the pain. "These hands are finally doing something real. Building something. Learning something that matters." Nakai caught her hands gently, examining the blisters with a healer's eye. From his pouch, he pulled a small clay container and began smoothing a pungent salve onto her palms. "Go slow," she hissed as the medicine stung. "It hurts." "I know, but I'll die before I hurt you worse than necessary." His touch was exquisitely gentle. "This will help them heal faster. You should have shown me sooner." "I didn't want you to think I was weak." "Sarah." He looked up, his dark eyes intense in the twilight. You left everything you knew. You're learning skills that take most people years to master. You face suspicion and hostility every day with your head high. I could never think you weak. He pressed a kiss to each bandaged palm. I think you're the strongest person I've ever known. Her throat tightened. I'm doing this for us, for a life that's ours. Ours, he repeated softly, then pulled her close. That's all I want. Just us together, building something that belongs to no one but ourselves. They sat there until the stars emerged, her head on his shoulder, his arms around her waist, both of them tired and content, and home. But peace never lasted long in the territory. 3 weeks after Sarah's arrival, a rider came thundering into the settlement, shouting in Apache. Nakai immediately grabbed his weapons and called for the other warriors. Desba hurried to Sarah. The Comancheros, she said tersely. They've been raiding nearby. They're coming this way. Sarah's blood went cold. They're looking for me. Maybe they just want supplies, slaves, scalps. Desba thrust a knife into Sarah's hands. Can you use this? I don't know. Then learn fast. Desba began organizing the women and children, moving them toward a hidden canyon behind the settlement. Nakai will fight. The other warriors will fight. We run if we must, but we fight first. Sarah found Nakai checking his bow, his face set in grim lines. You need to go with the women, he said without looking at her. I need to stay with you. Sarah, if they're here for me, I won't let others die for my sake. She lifted the knife Desba had given her. Teach me, quickly. Something flickered in his eyes. Fear, pride, love. Hold it like this. Slash up, not down. Aim for soft targets. Throat, belly, groin. And Sarah? He gripped her shoulders. If it comes to it, run. Even if I tell you to stay, run. Live, promise me. Only if you promise the same. I can't, then neither can I. She rose on her toes and kissed him hard. Together, remember? We fight together. The Comancheros came at dusk. 15 riders, heavily armed, led by a man with a jagged scar across his face. Sarah recognized him. He'd been there when they killed Thomas. Nakai and 7 other warriors met them at the valley entrance, bows ready. The scarred leader reined in his horse, grinning. Well, if it ain't the half-breed. Got something of mine, I think. You think wrong, Nakai said coldly. Turn back now, and you live. Big words from a mongrel. The leader spat. We tracked that white woman here. She belongs to us now. We killed her man fair and square. That makes her our property. She belongs to no one but herself. Nakai's voice dropped to something deadly. And she's under my protection. Leave now, or I'll put an arrow through your throat. The leader's smile widened. You in what army, half-breed? The answer came in the whisper of bowstrings. 3 Comancheros fell before they could draw their guns. The battle erupted in chaos. Gunfire and arrows, horses screaming, men shouting. Sarah pressed against the adobe wall, where Nakai had positioned her, knife clutched in shaking hands, watching the man she loved fight with lethal grace. He was magnificent and terrifying, every shot precise, every movement efficient. But there were too many. A bullet grazed his shoulder, another caught his thigh. He stumbled, and the scarred leader laughed, raising his rifle. Sarah didn't think. She ran. She crashed into Nakai as the rifle fired, felt the bullet meant for him tear through her side. Pain exploded white-hot, but she'd knocked him clear. They hit the ground together, his shocked cry mixing with her scream. Then Desba was there, and other women, all armed, all furious. The Comancheros, already reduced and facing more fighters than expected, broke. They fled into the desert, leaving their dead behind. Sarah! Nakai's hands were everywhere, pressing her wound, his face gray with terror. No, no, no! I'm okay, she gasped. Together, remember? You stubborn, beautiful, foolish woman. He was crying, this strong warrior crying as he lifted her. Hold on, just hold on. The next hours were a blur of pain and Desba's stern voice directing treatment. When Sarah finally surfaced from the darkness, she found herself on soft blankets with bandages wrapped around her torso. Every breath hurt, but she was alive. Nakai sat beside her, still bloodied, his shoulder and thigh wrapped but clearly unattended to. His hand gripped hers with desperate strength. You should have run, he said hoarsely. You should have let me stay with you from the start. She managed a weak smile. We're both stubborn. You took a bullet for me. You would have done the same. That's different. No. She squeezed his hand. It's not. You're not expendable just because you think you don't fit anywhere. You fit with me. That makes you worth protecting, worth fighting for, worth... She drew a painful breath. Worth living for. Nakai made a sound between a laugh and a sob, then carefully, so carefully, lowered his forehead to rest against hers. I love you. I should have said it before, but I was afraid. Afraid you'd leave, afraid you'd realize I'm not enough, afraid... Shh! She lifted her free hand to his face. You are enough. We are enough. Together. Together, he whispered. Desba appeared in the doorway, her expression unreadable. She looked at her son, at the white woman he loved, at their joined hands. Then slowly, she nodded. The elders agree, she said in English. She stays. She has proven herself warrior enough, foolish enough, and brave enough to be one of us. A small smile touched her lips. And clearly, my son will die without her. I would, Nakai agreed simply. Sarah's wound healed slowly. Nakai refused to leave her side, even when Desba scolded him. He changed her bandages with tender care, fed her broth when she was too weak to hold the bowl, talked to her through the painful nights when fever made her restless. Tell me about your father, she whispered one night. Tell me something good. Nakai was quiet for a long moment, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. He used to sing Mexican songs while he worked. He said music made the horses happy, and happy horses were good horses. A smile ghosted across his lips. He taught me to rope when I was 6. I was terrible at it, kept catching my own feet instead of the posts. But he never laughed. Just showed me again and again until I got it right. He sounds wonderful. He loved my mother completely. Didn't care that she was Apache, that her people sometimes raided Mexican ranches. He said love made a man better than he was alone. Nakai looked at her. I didn't understand that until you. I think I'm the one who's better because of you. No. He kissed her forehead. We're better together. That's the truth of it. When she was finally strong enough to walk, the settlement held a gathering. Nakai's mother stood before the people and spoke in Apache, her voice carrying across the valley. Sarah didn't understand all the words, but she caught enough: acceptance, protection, family. Then Nakai was there, taking her hands, his eyes never leaving hers. In my father's tradition, he said quietly, a man gives the woman he loves a ring as a promise. He opened his palm, revealing a simple band woven from silver wire and turquoise stones. In my mother's tradition, a man offers the woman he chooses to share his life a gift of his own making, proving he can provide. It's beautiful, Sarah breathed. In my tradition, he continued, and now his voice roughened with emotion, I offer you both. I offer you my name, my protection, my heart. I offer you a life that won't be easy, but will be honest. I offer you myself, both halves, neither whole, but together, perhaps enough. He slipped the ring onto her finger. Sarah Whitmore, will you walk this life with me? Will you be my wife? Through her tears, she saw the entire settlement watching. Desba's proud face, the other women who'd come to respect her, the warriors who'd fought beside Nakai, children staring with wide eyes, all of them waiting. She didn't answer in English. Nakai had been teaching her Apache words in the long healing nights. She'd practiced this phrase 100 times in her head, wanting to get it perfect. Now she spoke the words clearly, letting them ring out for all to hear. Shiel Holzon, walk in beauty with me. The settlement erupted in approval, whoops and laughter and Desba's delighted cry. But Sarah saw only Nakai, saw the way his eyes widened, the way wonder and joy transformed his face. You learned. I'm still learning, she corrected. Teaching me is a lifetime job. Think you're up for it? His laugh was pure happiness. I think I am. Together. Together, he kissed her then, in front of everyone, claiming her, and being claimed in return. When they finally parted, breathless and smiling, Desba stepped forward with a woven blanket, blue and white, the colors of the sky, the colors of both their worlds. My son was always meant to walk between worlds, she said, wrapping the blanket around both their shoulders. Perhaps he just needed to find the person willing to build a bridge. The ceremony that followed blended traditions, Spanish words and Apache blessings, Mexican music and native drums. They exchanged vows in 3 languages, making promises that needed no translation. To love, to protect, to build something beautiful together. That night, in the wickiup Nakai had built for them, Sarah traced the scars on his chest, the bullet wounds from the fight, the older marks from battles she hadn't witnessed. Each one a story of survival. Do they hurt? She whispered. Not anymore. He caught her hand, pressing it flat over his heart. You took the pain away. You took the loneliness away. His other hand found her side, where her own scar was still pink and healing. I almost lost you. When I saw you run toward that bullet, I couldn't let him hurt you. You're not property. You're a person, he said fiercely. A person I love more than my own life. A person worth everything. Then we're even. She smiled up at him. Because you're a person worth crossing a desert for. Worth learning a new language for. Worth building a new life for. Sarah. Together, she reminded him. Together, he agreed, and kissed her until the night wrapped around them like a blessing. The years that followed weren't easy. The territory was harsh. The conflicts between peoples endless. But Nakai and Sarah built something strong. A home that welcomed those who walked between worlds. A safe haven for those who didn't quite fit anywhere else. They had children who spoke 3 languages and walked with pride in both their heritages. They grew old together, silver threading through dark hair and blonde alike. On their 20th anniversary, Sarah found Nakai standing in the doorway of their home, watching the sunset paint the desert gold. She slipped her arms around his waist from behind, resting her cheek against his back. What are you thinking? she asked. That I'm grateful, he said simply, for a foolish traitor who let me walk in, for a desperate woman who trusted me, for every hard choice that led us here. He turned in her arms, his scarred hands framing her face with the same tenderness he'd shown that first night under the stars. For you, always for you. I'm not what you wanted, she teased, echoing words from a lifetime ago. He smiled, that devastating smile that still made her heart race, and replied, Then why can't I want anything else? And there, in the home they'd built between worlds, they kissed like they'd kissed 1,000 times before and would kiss 1,000 times again, with certainty, with passion, with the knowledge that they'd found exactly what they needed. Each other. Together. Always. The winter of their first year together came hard and fast. Sarah woke one morning to find frost coating the inside of their wickiup, her breath misting in the cold air. Nakai was already up, adding wood to the fire pit, his movements efficient despite the early hour. How cold is it? She asked, burrowing deeper into the buffalo robe. Cold enough that we'll need to check the horses soon. Their water will freeze. He glanced back at her, a small smile playing at his lips. Welcome to your first territory winter, wife. Sarah groaned, but forced herself to sit up. The months since their wedding had taught her many things, but winter survival was about to be the hardest lesson yet. She dressed quickly in the buckskin clothing Desba had helped her make, warmer than any Boston wool, though she'd never admit that to her mother back east. As she emerged from their home, the settlement was already stirring. Women were breaking ice from water containers. Men were checking livestock, and children were throwing snowballs with delighted shrieks. Everything looked beautiful under its blanket of white. But Sarah had learned that beauty here often masked danger. Come, Nakai said, handing her a pair of fur-lined moccasins. I'll show you how to read the snow. They walked to the edge of the settlement, where the desert stretched endlessly white. Nakai crouched, pointing to various marks in the snow. Rabbit tracks here. See the pattern? 2 small prints, 2 large, in a line. They're good eating if we can trap them. He moved to another set of prints. Deer passed through just before dawn, moving south, probably looking for food. Then his hand stilled over a different track. Mountain lion. Big one. Hunting. Sarah's heart kicked. How close? Close enough to be watching. Far enough that it's just curious, not hunting us. He stood, scanning the white landscape with a warrior's vigilance. This is why we always carry weapons, even in our own valley. The land doesn't stop being dangerous just because we call it home. Over the next weeks, Sarah learned winter's harsh lessons. She learned how to layer clothing to trap heat without restricting movement, how to recognize the signs of frostbite and treat it before it became serious, how to find water when everything was frozen, and how to melt snow safely for drinking. But she also discovered winter's strange beauties. On clear nights, the stars seemed close enough to touch, brilliant against the black sky. The northern lights sometimes danced green and purple across the horizon. And the silence, the deep, profound silence of snow-covered desert, felt almost sacred. One particularly brutal day, when the wind cut like knives and even the warriors stayed inside, Sarah sat grinding corn, while Desba worked on a new basket. The older woman had thawed considerably since the wedding, though she still maintained her stern exterior. You're getting better at that, Desba observed, nodding at Sarah's steady rhythm with the grinding stone. I had a good teacher. You had a demanding teacher. There's a difference. Desba's lips quirked. But yes, I am good. Sarah laughed, and Desba's expression softened further. My son is happy, the older woman said quietly. I have not seen him this way since before his father died. Before he learned that the world would judge him for his blood rather than his heart. The world is foolish, then. Yes, but the world is also powerful. Desba set down her basket-weaving materials. There is something you should know. In the spring, traders will come. Some of them knew Nakai's father. They will see you, and they will talk. Word will spread that the half-breed Apache has married a white woman. Is that a problem? It could be. For you, especially. Desba's dark eyes held warning. Some whites see a woman who chooses this life as a traitor. Some see her as damaged goods. If you travel to trading posts, if you encounter soldiers or settlers, there may be trouble. Sarah set down her grinding stone. I'm not afraid of gossip. I'm not talking about gossip. I'm talking about violence. Desba leaned forward. There was a woman 5 winters ago who married into the Mescalero band north of here. She was Mexican, but her husband was Apache. When soldiers found them at a trading post, they arrested her, saying she'd been kidnapped and brainwashed. They took her back to her family by force. What happened to her? She escaped and walked 300 miles back to her husband. But the second time they found her, they weren't so gentle. They hung her husband for kidnapping and locked her in an asylum. Desba's voice went flat. She died there, still trying to get back to her children. Sarah's blood ran cold. Nakai hasn't told me this. Because he's afraid of losing you. Afraid the world will take you from him the way it's taken everything else. Desba reached across and gripped Sarah's hand. So I'm telling you, if you stay, truly stay, you must be prepared to fight for it. Not just once, but over and over. Are you strong enough for that? Sarah thought of the bullet wound in her side, still aching in cold weather. Thought of the blisters that had finally become calluses. Thought of every hard lesson learned, every moment of doubt overcome. I'm getting stronger every day, she said, and I'm not going anywhere. Desba squeezed her hand once, then released it. Good. Then tomorrow, I teach you how to shoot a rifle properly. If you're going to fight, you need better weapons than kitchen knives and determination. The next morning, despite the cold, Desba marched Sarah out to a clear area away from the settlement. Nakai came too, carrying his father's old rifle, a Mexican military weapon that had seen better days, but still fired true. Shooting is about breath and patience, Desba began, demonstrating how to hold the weapon. You breathe in, exhale halfway, and in that pause, that moment of stillness, you squeeze the trigger. Sarah took the rifle, surprised by its weight. Nakai stepped behind her, his body a warm line against her back as he helped adjust her stance. Feet here, he murmured, nudging her boots into position. Shoulders relaxed. Don't fight the weapon. Work with it. His hands covered hers on the rifle. The kickback will hurt the first few times. Let it. Pain teaches you to respect the power you're holding. They'd set up targets, gourds balanced on rocks about 50 yards away. Sarah sighted down the barrel, tried to steady her breathing, and squeezed the trigger. The rifle kicked hard, slamming into her shoulder. The shot went wide, missing the target entirely. Nakai's arms steadied her before she could stumble. Again, Desba said. Sarah fired, missed. Fired again, missed again. By the 10th shot, her shoulder was screaming, and she'd only hit one gourd, and that might have been luck. "I'm terrible at this," she said, frustrated. "You're learning," Nakai corrected. "There's a difference. My first time shooting, I was so scared of the kickback that I closed my eyes. Shot straight up into the air." He smiled. My father laughed so hard he couldn't breathe. Then he taught me that fear makes you weak. Respect makes you strong. So respect the rifle, don't fear it. Respect what it can do. Respect the life you might have to take with it. His expression grew serious. A weapon is a tool, Sarah. No more, no less. But in the right hands, at the right moment, it can mean the difference between living and dying, between protecting what you love and losing it. She understood. This wasn't about becoming a warrior. It was about becoming someone who could defend her home, her family, her life. Someone who wouldn't be helpless when danger came. "Again," she said, raising the rifle. They practiced until the sun was high, and Sarah's shoulder was one massive bruise. But by the end, she was hitting the targets more often than not. Not perfect, but competent. Desba nodded approval. "You'll do," the older woman said. "With practice, you might even become good." That night, Nakai rubbed salve into Sarah's bruised shoulder. His touch gentle as always. "You don't have to be a warrior," he said quietly. "No one expects that." "I expect it of myself." Sarah turned to face him. "Your mother told me about the woman who married into the Mescalero band, about what happened to her." Nakai's jaw tightened. "I would kill anyone who tried to take you from me." "I know, but I won't let it come to that." She cupped his face. "I won't be helpless. I won't be someone who needs constant protection. I'm going to learn everything. Shooting, tracking, fighting if I must. Not because I want to be something I'm not, but because I want to be strong enough to stand beside you, not behind you." His eyes searched hers, seeing the determination there. Then he kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. "You're already the strongest person I know. But if this is what you need, I'll help you. We both will." "Together," she whispered. "Together," he agreed. Winter deepened, and with it came Sarah's education in survival. She learned to track game through snow, following the subtle signs that Nakai and his mother pointed out. She learned which plants could be harvested even in winter, their roots sustaining life when meat was scarce. She learned to build emergency shelters from snow itself, creating insulated caves that could save your life in a blizzard. But she also learned the community's rhythms, the way people came together when resources were scarce. The settlement operated on principles of sharing. Those who had extra gave to those who had less. One evening, as Sarah helped distribute corn to families with children, a young warrior named Cuchillo approached. He'd been one of the most hostile to her presence, barely concealing his contempt for the white woman in their midst. "You're persistent," he said in halting English. "I thought you would run home crying by now." "This is my home," Sarah replied calmly. "Because you married Nakai?" Cuchillo's lip curled. "That makes you Apache by law, but not by blood. Not by right." "No," Sarah agreed. "Not by blood. But maybe by choice, by work, by the fact that I bled for this community when the Comancheros attacked." She met his eyes steadily. "What makes someone belong somewhere, Cuchillo? The circumstances of their birth or the choices they make afterward?" He was silent for a long moment. Then, grudgingly, "You took a bullet for Nakai. That counts for something." "It counts for everything," Sarah said. "He's my family. That makes this settlement my family, and I protect my family." Cuchillo studied her, then nodded slowly. "My son is sick, fever and cough. Do you know white medicine?" Sarah's heart clenched. She'd learned some healing from Desba, but not enough. Not nearly enough. I know a little. Let me get Desba. Desba is with the Elder Council, but you're here. He swallowed his pride visibly. Will you come? It was a test, Sarah knew, but it was also a sick child, and that mattered more than pride or politics. Take me to him. Cochio's wickiup was smaller than most, and inside she found a boy of perhaps 6 lying on blankets, his small body shaking with chills despite being near the fire. His mother looked up with desperate eyes. Sarah knelt beside the boy, pressing her hand to his forehead. Burning up. She'd seen fevers like this before, back in Boston. Sometimes they broke naturally. Sometimes they didn't. I need cold water, clean cloths, and willow bark if you have it, Sarah said, falling into the calm authority she'd heard doctors use. We need to bring the fever down gradually. For the next 3 hours, Sarah worked with Cochio's wife to cool the boy without shocking his system. She made willow bark tea for the pain and fever, spooning it into his mouth, drop by drop, when he was too weak to swallow. She told stories to keep him calm when he grew restless and delirious. Nakai found her there near midnight, still keeping vigil. He crouched beside her, his hand on her back. How is he? Fever's breaking. He'll be okay, I think. Sarah's voice was hoarse with exhaustion. I couldn't leave until I was sure. I know. He pressed a kiss to her hair. That's who you are. By dawn, the boy was sleeping peacefully, his forehead cool to the touch. Cochilo's wife wept with relief, gripping Sarah's hands. Thank you, she whispered in Apache, then in careful English. Thank you, sister. Not white woman, not outsider, sister. Cochilo himself walked them back to their home, his expression unreadable. At their door, he paused. I was wrong about you, he said stiffly. You are Apache, not by blood, but by heart. That is what matters. He touched his fist to his chest in a warrior's salute. You are one of us. After he left, Sarah collapsed against Nakai, the exhaustion finally overwhelming her. He carried her inside, laid her on their bed, and held her while she cried. From relief, from exhaustion, from the weight of finally, truly being accepted. You're home, he murmured. You're finally home. And she was. Spring came like a resurrection. The snow melted, revealing the desert's hidden colors. Purple and gold wildflowers, green shoots pushing through red earth, the brilliant blue sky stretching forever. The settlement came alive with activity, planting, hunting, preparing for the traders who would arrive with the warm weather. Sarah woke one morning to find Nakai already dressed, checking his weapons with unusual care. What's wrong? She asked, sitting up. Nothing, just... He hesitated. The traders arrived today. The ones my mother warned you about. Sarah's stomach tightened, but she kept her voice steady. Then we'll face them together. The traders came in the early afternoon. 3 wagons loaded with goods, driven by weathered men who looked like they'd seen every hard thing the territory could throw at them. The leader was a grizzled Mexican named Santos, who embraced Nakai like a son, speaking rapid Spanish that Sarah couldn't quite follow. Then Santos saw her. His eyes widened, and he switched to English. Nakai, mi hijo, is this? My wife, Nakai said firmly, his hand finding Sarah's. Sarah, she's one of us now. Santos studied her with shrewd eyes, taking in the buckskin dress, the calloused hands, the confident way she stood at Nakai's side. A slow smile spread across his weathered face. Your father would be proud, he said finally. He always said you'd find someone who could match your stubbornness. He swept an elaborate bow to Sarah. Senora, it is an honor. Any woman brave enough to marry this one deserves respect. The tension in Sarah's shoulders eased slightly, but she noticed the other traders watching her with less friendly expressions, calculating, judging, whispering among themselves. The trading commenced in the center of the settlement. Santos and his men laid out their goods: iron tools, cloth, sugar, coffee, ammunition. The settlement offered furs, beadwork, woven baskets, tanned hides. It was a ritual both sides knew well, a delicate dance of negotiation and respect. Sarah helped Thesba display their goods, aware of the traders' eyes following her. One of them, a thin man with a scar on his neck, kept staring. Finally, he approached. "You're the white woman," he said flatly, "the one who married the half-breed." "I'm Sarah," she replied, keeping her voice level. "Nakai's wife." "Huh." He spat tobacco juice near her feet. "Heard about you. Heard you got yourself kidnapped. Got confused by these savages. You want help getting back to civilization? I can arrange it. Won't even charge you." "I am in civilization," Sarah said coldly. "And I wasn't kidnapped. I chose this life." "Chose?" The man laughed harshly. "Lady, you don't know what you're saying. You've been brainwashed by these." "That's enough, Parsons." Santos appeared at Sarah's shoulder, his hand on his knife. The lady made herself clear. "Move along." Parsons sneered but backed away. Sarah released a breath she hadn't known she was holding. "Don't let him bother you," Santos said quietly. "Men like that see the world in simple colors, white and savage, civilized and wild. They can't understand that the truth is more complicated." "Does it get easier, being caught between worlds?" Santos smiled sadly. "No, but you stop caring what small minds think. You focus on what matters, the people you love, the life you're building. The rest is just noise." That evening, after the trading was complete and Santos's wagons were loaded with goods, the settlement held a feast. It was tradition. The traders would stay the night, share food and stories, then leave at dawn. Sarah helped prepare the meal, aware that she was being watched, judged by these men who would carry tales of her back to the wider world. During the feast, Nakai stood and spoke to the assembled group in Spanish, then Apache, then English. "I want to introduce you formally to my wife," he said, his hand extended to Sarah. She rose and joined him, her heart pounding. Sarah was not born Apache. She was born in a world very different from this one. But she chose to leave that world behind. She chose hardship over comfort. She chose truth over safety. She chose love over fear. He turned to face her fully. "She's learned our language, our ways. She's worked until her hands bled. She's fought beside us, bled for us, saved lives among us. She is my heart, my home, my partner in all things. And anyone who disrespects her, disrespects me." It was a declaration, a line drawn. The settlement erupted in approval, shouts and whistles of support. Even most of the traders nodded respectfully. But Parsons stood, his face flushed with drink and anger. "This is wrong. You're polluting your bloodline, mixing white and savage. It's against nature." He didn't get to finish. Cuchillo was there suddenly, his knife at Parsons's throat. "You will apologize to my sister," Cuchillo said, softly, dangerously, "or you will bleed." "Sister?" Parsons choked. "She's white." "She is Apache," Cuchillo corrected. "By choice, by blood spilled, by a heart brave enough to walk between worlds. You are less than her. You are nothing compared to her. The knife pressed deeper. Apologize, now. Parsons swallowed hard. I apologize. To her, idiota. I apologize, ma'am, Parsons said to Sarah, his voice strangled. Cochillo released him with a disgusted shove. Santos grabbed Parsons by the collar and hauled him away, muttering furious Spanish. The feast resumed, but something had shifted. Sarah realized she was surrounded by women of the settlement, all of them standing close, protective, united. You are one of us, Cochillo's wife said firmly. Let the world say what it wants. We know the truth. That night, in the privacy of their home, Sarah finally let herself shake. Nakaya held her close, his own body tense with residual anger. I wanted to kill him, he admitted. When he called you confused, brainwashed. But you didn't. You defended me with words, with dignity. Sarah pulled back to look at him. That was more powerful than violence. Maybe. But if he'd touched you, he didn't. And if he had, I'd have handled it. She smiled slightly. Your mother's rifle lessons have made me confident. Confident enough to shoot a man? Sarah considered this seriously. If he threatened you or our family? Yes, without hesitation. She touched his face. I told you I'd become strong enough to stand beside you. I meant it. Nakai kissed her palm. I never doubted you. I only worried the world would try to take you from me. The world can try, Sarah said, but I'm not going anywhere. This is my home. You are my home. And I'll fight anyone who says different. The traders left at dawn, Santos promising to return in the fall with more goods. As the wagons disappeared into the desert, Desba approached Sarah and Nakai. Word will spread now, the older woman said. By summer, every trading post and settlement in the territory will know about the white woman who married my son. Some will be curious. Some will be hostile. Some will try to cause trouble. Let them try, Sarah said. Desba smiled. A real smile, warm and proud. My son chose well. You have the heart of a warrior, even if you were not born one. Over the following weeks, Sarah noticed changes in how the settlement treated her. She was no longer the outsider being tested, but a full member of the community. Women asked her opinion on matters. Warriors nodded to her with respect. Children played around her feet without wariness. But she also noticed Nakai growing restless. He'd disappear for hours, returning with game, but also with a distant look in his eyes. What's wrong? She finally asked one evening. He was quiet for a long moment. Santos brought news. There's a rancher 3 days, ride from here, who's looking for someone who speaks Apache and English. Someone who can help negotiate peaceful grazing rights with the Mescalero band that winters on his land. That sounds like good work. It would be. Honest work, good pay, chance to prevent violence. He paused. But it would mean leaving the settlement, living on the rancher's land, at least part of the year, and taking you into a world where, he trailed off, where I'll face more men like Parsons, Sarah finished, where people will judge us, insult us, maybe worse. Yes, Sarah moved to sit beside him, taking his hand. Do you want to do this work? Yes. It's the kind of work my father did, building bridges between peoples, preventing bloodshed. His voice grew passionate. There's so much hatred in this territory, Sarah. So much violence because people can't talk to each other, can't understand each other. I could help change that. Then we should do it. But the danger, we'll face it together, she said firmly. Nakai, I didn't choose this life just to hide in a valley forever. I chose it to be with you, wherever that leads. If your work takes you between worlds, then that's where we'll go. together. He pulled her close, his face buried in her hair. I don't deserve you. You deserve everything, she corrected, and so do I. We deserve a life that matters, that makes a difference. So let's take it. The next morning, Nakai spoke to the elders about the rancher's offer. They conferred in Apache, their faces serious, then finally nodded. You have always walked between worlds, the eldest said. Perhaps that is your medicine, your purpose. Go with our blessing, but know you always have a home here, both of you. Sarah and Nakai spent the next week preparing. Desba helped Sarah sew new clothes, some buckskin for comfort, but also a simple dress that wouldn't draw as much attention in white settlements. Cochilo and the other warriors made sure Nakai was well-armed and provisioned. The night before they were to leave, the settlement held a farewell gathering. It was smaller than the feast for the traders, more intimate. People came forward, one by one, to press gifts into their hands. A beaded necklace, a knife with a bone handle, a woven blanket, a small pouch of sacred herbs. For protection, each person said. For the journey, for the life ahead. Desba was the last. She gave Sarah a beautiful basket, woven with intricate patterns. My mother made this basket when I married Nakai's father, she said quietly. She gave it to me with a blessing. May your home be filled with love, and may your enemies know fear. I give this to you now with the same blessing. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Thank you for everything, for teaching me, for accepting me, for seeing what my son saw from the beginning. Desba interrupted gently. That you are strong, that you are worthy, that you belong. She pulled Sarah into an embrace. Be safe, daughter, and know you can always come home. They left at dawn, riding the same horses that had carried them to this valley months ago. Sarah looked back once to see the settlement, silhouetted against the rising sun. People gathered to wave farewell. Are you ready for this? Nakai asked softly. Sarah turned to face the open desert ahead, the unknown journey, the life they were riding toward. She thought of everything she'd learned, everyone she'd become. She thought of the rifle strapped to her saddle, the knife at her belt, the confidence in her bones. I'm ready, she said, for whatever comes, together. Together, Nakai agreed. And they rode out into the new day, two souls who'd found each other against all odds, ready to face a world that wouldn't understand them, wouldn't accept them easily, but also ready to prove that love could build bridges where hatred built walls, that choices mattered more than circumstances, that family was what you made it, not what you were born into. The desert stretched before them, vast and beautiful and dangerous. But they'd faced danger before. They'd survived it. Together. And they'd survive whatever came next. Together. Always together. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're enjoying this tale from. Are you listening at home, during your commute, or perhaps while working? Please subscribe to the From Wild West channel and share your thoughts in the comments below. What did you think of Sarah and Nakai's journey? Your feedback means the world to us.